ahead and call this regular meeting of Wednesday, January 24, 2024, meeting of the Camarillo City Council to order. May we please have a roll call?
Councilmember Martinez-Bravo? Here. Councilmember Santangelo?
Here.
Councilmember Tennyson?
Here.
Vice Mayor Kildee?
Here.
And Mayor Tremblay.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And we're here, by the way. And I'm going to ask the city attorney, we're going to go into closed session. I'll ask the city attorney to announce the items on which we're going into closed session concerning.
Great, thank you. Mayor and Council, there are two items on the agenda. One is existing litigation listed as the OPV Coalition versus Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Agency. The second matter is exposure to potential litigation. The facts and circumstances on the closed session relate to an appeal letter received from the SAFER Group dated December 14th, 2023, and another appeal from the attorney Dershawn Wernick of VCC-AMG. This is both related to the Costco project. If there's any reportable action, I will make that report.
Thank you very much. We now stand in recess, and we will return at 5 p.m. All right, we're going to, it's 5 o'clock. We're going to convene this meeting of the Industrial Development Authority, regular meeting of Wednesday, January 24, 2024. May we start with a flag salute, and Councilmember Santangelo, could you please lead us?
Happy to. Please stand. Hand over heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. With respect to the Industrial Development Authority, do we have, there are no changes to the agenda, correct? Hearing none. Do we have any public comments with regard to the Industrial Development Authority? Please don't all step forward at once. Okay, hearing no general public comments, we'll go to consent.
Move the approval.
All right, we have a, thank you. We have a motion and a second on the consent calendar. Please vote. And consent calendar is approved on a 5-0 vote. Are there any board or staff comments? All right, we will adjourn that meeting of the Industrial Development Authority. We'll next go to the January 24, 2024 regular meeting of the Camarillo Capital Improvement Corporation. Are any amendments to the agenda? Hearing none, are there any comments from the public with respect to the Camarillo Capital Improvement Corporation? Hearing none, we'll go to consent calendar.
Move the approval.
Second.
Okay, I hear a motion from Vice Mayor and a second from Councilmember Tennyson. Ty did not go to the runner on that one. Please vote. And we have a 5-0 vote on that matter. Any board comments? Any staff comments? All right, we're going to adjourn that meeting of the Camarillo Capital Improvement Corporation. You probably noticed that there's a pattern going on here. Our next will be of the regular meeting, January 24, 2024, of the Public Finance Authority. Any amendments to the agenda? All right, hearing none. Any public comments with respect to the Public Finance Authority? Hearing none, we now move to the consent calendar. Do I hear a motion?
I'll move.
Okay, I heard Councilmember Martinez-Bravo with a first, and Councilmember Santangelo with a second. It's almost baseball season, so I want to go tie the run. Okay. Would you please vote? And we have a 5-0 vote on that item. Any board comments? Any staff comments? Hearing none, we'll adjourn that meeting of the Public Finance Authority. We will next move to the regular January 24, 2024 meeting of the Camarillo Community Development Commission. Any changes to the agenda? Hearing none. Any public comments from anyone out there with respect to the Camarillo Community Development Commission? Hearing none. We have two items on the consent calendar.
Move the approval.
A second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of the consent calendar. Please vote. And that consent calendar is approved on a 5-0 vote. Are there any commissioner comments? Any staff comments? All right, we'll adjourn that meeting of the Camarillo Community Development Commission. And?
Right. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Camarillo Board of Library Trustees. Let the record reflect that all council members are present. And are there any amendments to the agenda? Seeing none, the agenda is approved. We will move to general public comments. Is there anyone who wishes to address the library board? Okay, seeing no one coming forward, we'll move to the consent. Can I get a motion and a second to approve?
Move approval. I'll second.
Okay, please vote. Okay, moving on to the discussion item. Do we have a report?
President and fellow trustees. Last month, the library reintroduced Pause for Reading. This popular program allows children from kindergarten to 5th grade practice reading with certified therapy dogs. The purpose of this program is to motivate reluctant readers to read out loud to dogs who love to listen. Next month is February, and the library will highlight Black History Month. We will have a presentation featuring Dr. Gregory Freeland, who will speak on an intertwining history of music and the civil rights movement. In addition, the library is offering a children's music program that will showcase the rhythms and beats by Black musicians. I'm excited to announce this spring, the library will have its first multicultural celebration. The event will take place on Sunday, May 19th from 1 to 5 at the library. I am working closely with Chantel Limon at the city manager's office with planning and promotion. The event will be titled Camarillo Connections. Library staff will coordinate afternoon programming, which will highlight different ethnicities. In addition, we'll invite community groups to host educational activities that celebrate their heritage. We are still in the early planning stages, and we will offer more details in the near future. That concludes my report, and I'm happy to address any questions.
Thank you so much, Mandy. Do any board directors have any comments or questions? No? Okay. Thank you, and I really look forward to the events. There are so many wonderful events that you're putting on. Last year, we had staff put those events on our council calendar, and I've requested that again. I think that's very helpful.
Great.
So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay. With that, if there's no additional business, we will now adjourn the meeting of the Camarillo Library Board.
All right, I'll put on my microphone. We'll now reconvene the meeting of the Camarillo City Council, continuing with the regular meeting of Wednesday, January 24, 2024. We did a roll call previously, but let's just let the record reflect that all 5 council members are present, if that's okay, Madam Clerk. No amendments to the agenda. Hearing none, we're going to go to council and staff comments and reports. Which council member would like to start us off tonight? I'm looking both ways. Mr. Tennyson? Sure. Okay.
On January 11th, I had a regular membership meeting of RDP in the morning. In the afternoon of January 11th, we had an RDP board meeting. On the evening of January 11th, I had my first VCOG meeting, which was very interesting. On January 18th, I attended the Association of Water Agencies WaterWise Breakfast Series. And on January 22nd, along with Councilmember Martinez Bravo, I attended the Finance and Investment Committee meeting. On the 20th, on Saturday, I attended a town hall meeting at the Camarillo Community Center with Assemblymember Steve Bennett, along with the mayor. We were present. It was informative, well-attended. He packed the room. And I just want to do a quick shout out. Next week, I get the privilege of presenting a certificate to Marguerite Arnold, who will be 101 years old, and she's a resident of Camarillo.
Great.
Thank you. Who wants to go next?
I'll go next.
Vice Mayor Kildee.
Okay, so January 18th, I attended a VRSD meeting, and tomorrow I will also be down at the CASA conference. So that's all I have.
All right. Councilmember Santangelo?
Okay, for me, for meetings attended on January 11th, the CPA Finance Committee, on January 11th, also the Airport Authority, and on January 18th, the CPA Executive Committee, and I will be driving down to the CASA conference tonight and be there with with Vice Mayor Kildee. And that's all. I will.
Councilmember Martinez Bravo.
Thank you, Mayor. On January 18th, I attended an introductory meeting for Finance and Investment Committees, and I just wanted to thank Mark Odibe, for our Director of Finance, for putting that together. There's so much that happens behind the scenes, and I really appreciate your efforts. January 18th, I attended the annual meeting of the Economic Development Collaborative in the city of Oxnard. With us were staff, Mr. George Winkler, Alonso Ramirez, and one of our interns, Armand Upal. January 22nd, I attended the Finance Committee meeting and the Investment Committee meetings with Councilmember Tennyson. January 22nd, I had a meeting with Chief Gardner, our fire chief. In addition, I had the opportunity to share some time with a couple of other firefighters, Firefighter Williams, Fuller, Cook, Johnson, and I had a tour of our fire station 54 over by the post office. It was a really, it was a great experience just because we had firefighters who had been there, you know, anywhere from just the beginning to those who had been there, served for a long time. And it just, you know, made me again, appreciate how everyone in our community is just doing their part to make this such a good place to live. So I'm very, very grateful for the work they do. And then just some upcoming events that I wanted to invite our council and everyone to. On Saturday, February 3rd, from 12 to 2, the Camarillo Council PTAs, they are hosting a Healthy Family Days at 1605 Burnley Street in Camarillo. If you want more information, you can go to healthyfamilydayscamarillo@gmail.com. This event is going to be on our council calendar. I did ask staff to include that for anyone who would like to attend. In addition, as you may have seen in multiple communications throughout social media in our city, Camarillo Airport Layout Plan, a Q&A, is going to be on February 20th at 6 p.m. at VCOE. I know that this comes in conflict with PVSD, we have that week off. And so families with children, you can still submit your questions and comments through those links that have been sent in those communications. And I also wanted to take this opportunity to congratulate Mr. George Winkler, who is our Economic Development Manager. He was the honoree for the Chairperson's Award of Excellence through the West Ventura County Business Alliance. So I know he's having an event next week. I think it's during our special meeting, unfortunately. But thank you for all the wonderful work that you do, Mr. Winkler.
All right. Thank you very much. Meetings attended since January 10th, on January 11 with Councilmember Santangelo, meeting of the Airport Authority. On January 12, the Metrolink Board of Directors, both the Executive Committee and the Contract Operations, Maintenance, and Safety Committee. That same day, January 12, Fox Canyon GMA Special Board Meeting. On January 14th, together with Vice Mayor Kildee, I was privileged to be at an Eagle Court of Honor for Oliver Kramer of Troop 858. Truly outstanding scout, really outstanding scout, an outstanding family. January 16th, I had a Metrolink ad hoc committee meeting, and on January 20, I attended Assemblymember Bennett's Town Hall with Councilmember Tennyson, and it was a very interesting meeting. Okay, I had 3 announcements. The first one is with respect to the Lunar New Year celebration, the Year of the Dragon. If you go on the website for the Ventura County Chinese American Association, that event will be held on February 3 from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. at Constitution Park here at 601 Carmen Drive. And there's Chinese cultural performance from 11:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. There's the lion dance, magic show, Chinese performances, dancing, singing, food trucks, and vendors. About 1,000 people are expected. It's a really good event, and it's been held in the past at the library. This year, I think it's being held at Constitution Park, so it's really something to celebrate. It's a wonderful event. So if you need more information, you can certainly go on the Ventura County Chinese American Association website for that. The second is kind of sad news. This is our last meeting for quite a while here in council chambers. Beginning February 1, all City Council and Planning Commission meetings will be temporarily held in the community room of the Camarillo Public Library, located at 4101 Las Posas Road. This is to accommodate a full remodel of these City Council chambers. During that period of construction, all regularly scheduled public city meetings will be held in person at the Camarillo Public Library and will continue to be live streamed on the city's YouTube channel for full access by the community. The meetings will be played on the government channel following the meeting, and anyone who's listening out there, you can get all the information on city council meetings and agendas. You just need to visit our website at cityofcamarillo.org/meeting info. One note for outside agencies that utilize these council chambers, typically for their meetings, including VCTC, et cetera, please check that agency's agenda to learn about where they're going to be meeting during the remainder of this year for their meetings. Madam Clerk, was that okay? Did I give enough on that? Okay, we're good. All right, and our third and final item is with respect to our very own George Winkler. And George, it's a privilege to see you out in the audience tonight. I want to congratulate you, as Councilmember Martinez Bravo did, on being awarded the Chairperson's Award of Excellence by the West Ventura County Business Alliance. You see George's picture up there on the screen, and it's a smiling picture too, George. I'm kidding you. The West Ventura County Business Alliance announced recently this year's honorees, all of whom were selected by the 2023 chair, Donna Lacayo. It's been a longstanding tradition, as I understand it, that the departing chair of the board bestows discretionary honor on some of the organization's most dedicated volunteers who have helped advance West Ventura County Business Alliance in 2023. So I want to read you, at the risk of George blushing, I want to read you what the West Ventura County Business Alliance said about George. This will not be long, George, I promise. George Winkler is the Economic Development Manager for the City of Camarillo. In that role, he is also Chief Engineer of the annual Camarillo State of the City. That presentation was completely reimagined in 2023, and George helped redefine the partnership between the city and the West Ventura County Business Alliance in that endeavor. Following the October event, both the city and West Ventura County Business Alliance received enormous positive feedback on the revamp, and I will add that our mayor, Susan Santangelo, did a terrific job in that state of the city. So West Ventura County Business Alliance thanks George for partnering with them on that event. So George, on behalf of the City Council, we are very proud of you for receiving the honor. Thank you for representing this city well, and congratulations to you. Can I give you a hand? Okay. I don't know that you want to go to the lectern on this one, though, do you? Okay. We caught you by surprise. All right. Very well. Well, it's a real privilege to be able to announce that award to you, George, and thank you for being here. All right. We are now at the point of our consent calendar on items C through J, and I'll note that item J, that resolution was amended on January 22, 2024. Did I say 20? Anyway, 2024, and that amended resolution was posted in accordance with the Brown Act. Is there any discussion, or does anyone want to poll any of the items on the consent calendar C through J?
I'll move consent.
All right, hearing none, thank you very much, Councilmember Martinez Bravo. I hear a motion. Do we have a second? Councilmember Santangelo, we have a second, so we're going to now vote on consent calendar items C through J respectively. All right, and that item passed, that motion passes on a 5-0 vote. Thank you very much, and thank you to staff for all the hard work on those consent calendar items. We're next going to move to a discussion item, item K, which is the Camarillo Train Station Undercrossing Project ST14-05, the grant funding baseline agreement, and I believe, Mr. Grubb, Andrew, our principal civil engineer, is going to be with us tonight on that item. Andrew, welcome aboard.
Good evening, Mayor Tremblay and council members. Tonight, staff will be presenting on the baseline agreement for the Camarillo Train Station Undercrossing project. The project would construct a new pedestrian undercrossing at the Camarillo Train Station, owned by the Ventura County Transportation Commission, to improve accessibility by creating a shorter and more direct route for rail passengers crossing between the west and east rail platforms. The undercrossing will also benefit the general public, making it easier to cross the tracks separating the Pleasant Valley Fields, Village at the Park, and Mission Oak neighborhoods from Old Town Camarillo. The project has received over $16 million in grant funding, and staff has been working diligently with the design consultant Rail Pros to expedite the design to meet grant deadlines. On May 26, 2020, the city received a grant funding from Los Angeles, San Diego, San Luis Obispo Rail Corridor Agency, or LOSAN, funded by the Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Program and Proposition 1B. As part of the LOSAN grant, the city committed to providing $910,000 in matching funds. On May 17, 2023, the California Transportation Commission, or CTC, approved an additional $1.3 million of Proposition 1B grant funding for the project. And on June 28, 2023, the CTC approved a $7.9 million Senate Bill 1 Solutions for Congested Corridors grant program for a total funding amount of $17.02 million. The Solutions for Congested Corridors grant was awarded as part of a larger $74.8 million grant to the Ventura County Transportation Commission and Caltrans as co-applicants for the US 101 Connected Communities Corridor Rail and Active Transportation Improvements Project. The city will be receiving $7.9 million of the $70.4.8 million as an implementing agency, which will be used during the construction phase of the project. The grant requires that the Ventura County Transportation Commission and the city execute a baseline agreement that outlines the grant requirements and deadlines for completion. As part of the baseline agreement, the city prepared a project vicinity map, project report with the conceptual design and cost estimate, a schedule with milestones for completion, and the grant required that the environmental document could be completed by December 28, 2023. Staff worked with the consultant to expedite the review, and the statutory exemption was approved at the November 8th council meeting last year. The baseline agreement is tentatively scheduled to be presented at the March 2024 meeting for approval. So here's a brief timeline of the project. Starting on June 14th, 2023, Council awarded the design services agreement with RailPros and agreements with the Union Pacific Railroad and Metrolink, and staff began working with RailPros to start the preliminary engineering and environmental review phase to meet the required grant deadlines. Shortly after, on June 28th, CTC approved the Solutions for Congested Corridor Grant Program funds, securing the remaining estimated funding for the project. And on November 8th, Council approved the statutory exemption. Today, staff is recommending that City Council authorize the city manager to finalize and execute the baseline agreement. The baseline agreement is tentatively scheduled to be presented at the March 2024 CTC meeting for approval. Staff plans to return to Council towards the end of this year or early next year to provide an update on the preliminary project design and planned maintenance responsibilities for the undercrossing. So with that, staff recommends that City Council authorize the city manager to finalize and execute the baseline agreement and all associated documents deemed necessary for the grant. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Grubb. Do any members of the council have any questions for Mr. Grubb? Councilmember Tennyson, followed by Councilmember Martinez-Bravo, is on deck. Councilmember Tennyson.
Just clarification, council had previously approved the $910,000, correct?
Correct.
And there's no expectation that it'll cost the city any additional city funds for this project?
As of right now, we feel comfortable about the cost estimate and where we're at with the grant funding, so we don't anticipate requesting any additional funds at this time.
And another question, it was brought up at our council meeting last year, and I've had a few public comments about it. We will have some kind of an agreement with VCTC on maintenance and liability, et cetera, of the parking lot and the undercrossing. Is that correct?
That's correct, Councilmember Tennyson. We are planning on reviewing that and bringing back an update to council later this year or early next year on that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Martinez-Bravo.
Thank you. One of my questions was regarding the maintenance of it moving forward. So thank you, Councilmember Tennyson, for asking that. My other question was regarding the funding. I know at the last time we met, there were some deadlines that had to be met. We had to act during a certain time. Are there any barriers or pressures that we have to be aware of because we are relying so much on grant funding for this project?
Right now, we're working to get the UPR approval. I think that's our next big milestone in the next year. But there are grant deadlines, as you mentioned, with the environmental. We met that by getting that environmental review approved on November 8th. So that took a lot of work with the consultant, Rail Pros, and Rincon to get that expedited. But that would be our next milestone, really, is getting that UPRR approval.
Okay, thank you so much for all your work.
Thank you.
A couple of quick questions. First of all, it's either a blessing or a curse to be mayor because your colleagues always ask good questions first. And thank you, Councilmember Tennyson, for asking that question about an agreement with VCTC, because when this council met on June 14 of last year, we established a certain number of, I'll just say, conditions or expectations relative to this. But the primary question that I have for you tonight in reviewing this baseline agreement, it's an issue that I made staff aware of, is there any provision, and I could not find it, in this baseline agreement which precludes the city from requiring VCTC or LoSAN to cover any additional extra costs? In other words, once the project goes out to bid, hypothetically, if it costs more than what's up on the screen, is there anything in this agreement that would preclude the city from turning around and saying, hey, wait a minute, time out, we have bids in excess of what the engineer's estimate are, we need additional monies from outside? Is there anything in this agreement that would preclude us from doing that?
And maybe I'll ask Ms. Yeah.
Right,
Ms.
no,
Fossil.
we agree that in our review of the agreement, there is nothing that would preclude that, and we're going to continue to follow, as directed by council, that additional funding from other sources would be needed
Okay.
if that case arises.
And there's no other, there's nothing in any other agreement that
Correct.
we're aware of, grant agreement or otherwise, that would preclude us from requiring that outside money to come in order to fully meet
Correct.
whatever the bid cost is
Right.
for the project.
Correct.
Okay. And then just very quickly, at our June 14, 2023 meeting, when we talked about this, we talked about VCTC having an agreement whereby VCTC would indemnify the city for liability in the future. I think Councilmember Tennyson touched on this, at least indirectly. We also, I know, requested that in the design, which I know, is it Rail Pros is working for us on now, that we would want to enhance the ability of law enforcement to gain quick access to that tunnel area, along with security lighting and cameras and closure at night, et cetera. So anyway, just this was more of a gentle reminder than anything else about some of the discussion that we had back on June 14. Okay, any other questions from council members? Vice Mayor Kildee?
It kind of goes back to what Mayor Tremblay said, but with all of this and the long-term discussions that we have, we still are going to be actively involved in the design in this project, even though it's not a city project, with several people still think it is because it's in our city. But I just want an assurance that, to the best of your ability, or any staff or anybody else here, that we will be actively involved in the design on this. Obviously, taking VCTC into consideration here, it's their project, but, you know, in the long and the short of it, that they will listen to us and we will have a say in that.
Yeah, Councilmember Kildee, absolutely. And I do want to clarify that as we move forward, it's going to look a lot like a city project because it's in our CIP. We are essentially, as Andrew mentioned, the implementing agency as outlined in this grant. And so really, we're carrying out and affecting the project to actually get in the ground. The applicants for this grant itself are VCTC and Caltrans. So we're definitely a major party, and we're leading our Rail Pros consultant. We've hired them to do the design. So we're going to be a very active lead agency in implementing the project and getting it in the ground.
Like to have that assurance.
All right. Any other questions at this point? Andrew, thank you for an excellent presentation. Don't go away, though. Are there any members of the public? I don't have any speaker cards on this item. Are there any members of the public who wish to address the City Council on this item? All right. Hearing none, what is the pleasure of the council?
I'd like to move staff's recommendations.
I'll second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Thank you. Please vote. And that item is adopted on a 5-0 vote. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Grubb. All right. With that, we are now going to proceed to our public, we have one public hearing tonight, and it is item L, which is the proposed zoning ordinance amending certain sections of Title 19 and the addition of Chapter 19.37 to the Camarillo Municipal Code. And I believe James Fowler, who's already at the lectern, hi James, is here with us tonight. So James, please take it away. Thank you. Welcome aboard.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, good evening. To reiterate, I'm here to bring forth a proposed update to the city's municipal code in response to changes to state law. So SB 6 was a law that was passed last year, or actually rather 2022, that allowed housing development in commercial zones so long as they don't abut industrial. There's a few other caveats there as well, very high fire hazard zones, things of that nature. It does require prevailing wage standards. That's essentially union wages. Skilled and trained workforce requirements, again, that's essentially union labor. It must comply with the objective development standards of the closest residential zone that allows for 30 unit per acre development. So that's a kind of a technical thing. Essentially, it would be our high density residential zones. It would have to comply with those standards. And just again, objective, meaning it can't be a kind of undefined term like the architecture must match the surrounding area. That's not objective. It has to be, the architecture has to be Spanish style with, Spanish tile. You would list all the components, essentially. Moving on, AB 2011, a kind of a sister bill to SB 6, also allows housing in commercial zones. However, the California Environmental Quality Act does not apply to AB 2011. Again, must pay prevailing wage, must comply with certain objective standards. It's more limited geographically in where it can be used. For instance, for this bill, it can't be within 500 feet of the freeway. It can't be in one of our strategic or specific plans that doesn't allow for residential already. So for instance, the outlets are insulated from this. And then we have AB 2221. These are some changes to ADUs. The big change, again, is we now may only impose objective standards to ADUs. And there were some changes to the front setback requirements. This is, again, excuse me, it's annoyingly technical, but essentially if someone had a very small backyard, a backyard such that you cannot fit an ADU in there, we would have to allow them to build the ADU at least partially in the front yard. However, we were limiting that to the maximum extent feasible. So let's say they could somehow fit it with a 19-foot front setback as opposed to our normal 20-foot required front setback. We would say, okay, you can do it, but with the 19. We wouldn't just let them go crazy and go right up to the lot line. Again, SB 897 is ADU changes. It's some changes to the maximum height. We now must allow 18 feet for a detached ADU within a half a mile walking distance of the Metrolink. And then another 2 feet are allowed for roof pitch. 18 feet for a detached ADU on a lot with an existing or proposed multifamily multi-story dwelling. So single story doesn't get that. And then 25 feet for an attached ADU, of whether that be on a single family or multifamily lot. Then there's AB 2334. This allows for 100% affordable projects to receive within these very low vehicle travel areas, unlimited density and a height increase of 33 feet or 3 stories. The law defines a very low vehicle travel area as an urbanized area where the existing residential development generates vehicle miles traveled per capita that is below 85% of either regional VMT per capita or city VMT per capita. Again, I apologize for the crazy technical definition here, but essentially what that's saying is the vehicle mile travel area would be compared both versus the average city VMT and the average SCAG, the Southern California Association of Governments VMT, for a residential area. Then we have AB 682. This expands density bonus law to shared housing projects. We don't have so much of those. That's essentially like dormitory housing. I'll provide the definition here. It's shared housing projects are defined as residential or mixed-use structures with 5 or more shared units designed for permanent residential use of more than 30 days, and they share 1 or more kitchen or dining areas. So again, you can kind of think of like a dormitory style situation. AB 2097, it's basically the removal of most parking requirements within half a mile of the Metrolink, so we can no longer impose parking requirements, though a developer is free to provide parking as much as they want. So it's kind of allowing the free market to control the amount of parking. We still can require ADA parking, EV parking, and parking for event centers and hotels. Finally, we have some changes to our urban dwelling unit section of our code. HCD, we'd received a letter that directed the city to make several changes to its urban dwelling unit code related to the number and type of units, the maximum height, the size, and affordability. On certain of those, we had some questions for HCD. We wanted some clarification as to the statutory authority for things like our limit on the maximum size. We haven't heard back from them yet, but we are moving forward with certain of the updates we had agreed seemed reasonable. And then for the last, the affordability, we're in the process of conducting, we have a affordability requirement for SB9 units. The state asked us to either get rid of that or provide a feasibility study showing it's feasible from a profitability standpoint for the person to build a unit with that covenant in place. And we are in the process of doing that feasibility study. We're working with a local developer to do that, to create that study. I want to acknowledge that there was a formatting issue on Exhibit A of the ordinance. Certain of the numbering got thrown off. I apologize for that. But the red line version has all of the correct numbering and lettering on there. So I hope you looked at the red line version. Primarily to me, that's a lot easier to see what the changes are. So I hope it's the same for you. Regardless, that's something that would be corrected as soon as tomorrow, and certainly before a second reading. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fowler. Let's start, this is a public hearing item, but before we hear from the public, let's start with any questions from council members. Do we have any questions? Councilmember Santangelo, start us off.
Thank you for your presentation. Just to clarify so that everybody knows, these are state law changes that we are having to make changes to our municipal code because of. These aren't changes that we came up with and wanted to.
That's absolutely correct. This isn't something I or anyone here at the city imagined up and wants to impose on the city. We're bringing our code into compliance with the latest state law.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Vice Mayor Kildee.
I don't necessarily have a comment, but I'd like to make a question, but I do have a comment. Perhaps after the public hearing, I can make a comment if that's permissible.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's fine. Let's do that. Any other questions from council members at this point? All right, hearing none, this is a public hearing. I have one speaker card thus far, and I want to welcome to the podium our esteemed retired colleague, Charlotte Craven. I don't think I need to tell you about the rules of the time that you have to speak, Mrs. And the clock is not running. I would like to do it, but that would just be teasing you. Thank you. Welcome aboard.
My name is Charlotte Craven, and first, I support the recommended action, even though I think these bills and others that the state legislature have passed in the long run are going to deteriorate a lot of our neighborhoods. I know you must follow state laws. We received this notice of hearing because we own property in the half-mile buffer. So I thought it was a good time to make you aware that the things we had on our books are not the only impediments to developing new housing for families with low incomes within this half-mile buffer zone. Another impediment is a sentence in the Camarillo Commons specific plan requiring that all garages be rear-facing in the Ramir Street Daily Mobile tract of duplexes if development occurs. The area is not part of the specific plan. It was built in the 1950s with no alleys, and no other residential area in town requires that all garages be rear-facing. By the way, the current zoning allows for 3 units per lot. So if the owners took advantage of the zoning, the number of units for families with low incomes in that area could potentially increase from 100 units to 150 units. However, the specific plan rear-facing garage requirement is a poison pill. Those lots are way too small to add a 3rd unit, to have a driveway that wraps around to garages that face the rear, and to keep a yard for kids to play in. As I said, this isn't about the current topic, but it is about a way to provide more low-income housing in this 1/2 mile buffer area. We've been talking to staff about this. We're planning to continue talking to staff about this, rescinding this requirement in the Camarillo Commons specific plan, and I hope we'll back talking to you before too much longer.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Craven. Any questions for Mrs. Craven? Thank you very much for being here tonight. And I should indicate, obviously, since we've started the public hearing, that we have opened the public hearing. It's now currently going on. Are there any members of the public additional members of the public who wish to address the council on this matter? All right, hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing, and let's bring it back for discussion by the council. Who would like to start? I know I have comments, but I get to go last.
I have comments. I don't really have a question.
Vice Mayor Kildee, start us off.
I think it's important to know that this is, at least it has the potential to be a seaside change in the way that the city of Camarillo looks. And we have to be aware of that, and we have to deal with either the positives or the negatives of such things. My thought is that when we all come back to this city 10 years from now, there's a strong potential for certain parts of the city to look way different than what they look today. This is a situation that we find ourselves in as local representatives that have to deal with a state that is trying to deal with a very much a perceived problem. There is a housing shortage in the state, very much true here. But they're going to put their ideas on a local government that's tried since 1964 to have high-quality development that I think most of the people have looked at our city and said, wow, you know, you didn't hit a home run, but boy, you did a great job here. And that's my concern with this, notwithstanding the housing shortage, the affordability. I deal with that as all of us do practically on a daily basis here. I understand all that, and I would love to be able to find more affordable housing in the city of Camarillo. But notwithstanding saying all of that, that it's more of this is something we have to do, and I'll support it, but it's more of a plea to anybody out there that, and this is just, it's just a comment from myself. It has nothing to do with any other council member, either present or past, on this. But my plea is for anybody that wants to come forward and build an ADU and or change a zone into from a commercial into a residential, that they come forward with the feeling that whatever they bring forward, that all of us can be proud and and supportive of this, and a high-quality project that, looks good into what the city's always kind of stood for. And that's my plea to them. Do they necessarily have to do that? Perhaps, perhaps not. But when we all come back, and when we drive by a potential project here, my hope is that we can all feel comfortable in the approval of that, and that it's enhanced our city and not detracted from that. Now, it's an editorial on my part, but I don't know what else to do. I think we have to always try to do what's best for the majority of our city here, and I'm hoping that those that will come forward with this will feel the same way about the city that so many of our residents do. So that's what I have to say.
Councilmember Martinez-Bravo.
Thank you. I had a question more for our attorney, Rachel. So out of the stated legislation, do you know if there are some that are more helpful or problematic in some cities, or have you heard of anything when they have been implemented?
So it's interesting, on some of these bills, we don't really see a lot of developers gobbling up the opportunity to do some of these developments. So, 100% affordable, as well as paying prevailing wages, as well as some of the other requirements in there are really just not something that it appears, again, we're only a year in, but we're not seeing a lot of applications for these projects. On the ADU side, there may be some changes that will make ADUs an option for some properties where currently they couldn't have done them. But as far as these really large developments, no. But on the parking part, that's something on 2097 that you can't require parking within a transit station. That is something that some developers will like. But interestingly, not having parking for your businesses or residents will harm the attraction of trying to have those tenants. So potentially, the free market, as James said, may still allow for parking to be provided, maybe not at the high level that maybe we had, but it's makes good business sense to have parking.
Thank you very much. That was very helpful.
Sure.
Councilmember Tennyson.
Yeah, mine is more like Vice Mayor Kildee's. It's more of an editorial. It's interesting that our legislature and governor passed and signed 42 housing-related bills out of Sacramento with absolutely minimal, if any, input from local legislative bodies, city councils, and the county board of supervisors. I look at the ADU thing. I love the neighborhoods in Camarillo. And the ADU does nothing to address affordable housing, because any resident that is going to put in an ADU in their backyard is either going to do it for a family member or it's going to be a market rate rental. So all that Sacramento's doing when they push these bills on local government is taking away our rights as a city to develop our city the way we want and our residents want, and I strongly object to Sacramento dictating to the city of Camarillo how we have to do things.
Councilmember Santangelo.
Councilmember Tennyson pretty much summed up what my comments were going to be. I think it's always challenging when the state is taking away local control, because we sit here and what are we doing then? And what's our purpose? So that's a tough pill to swallow. So that's my editorial comment as well.
Can I make one more comment, if you mind?
Sure you
As long
can.
as we're talking about this.
Absolutely.
My thoughts are this probably isn't the end of this. This is probably the beginning of it, and I have a suggestion that we really work closely with our lobbyists up in Sacramento and try to get our side of the issue out here so we can all come to the table and we could get some sort of, agreements that benefit a whole lot of people and work with them. That's my suggestion.
And I had, anybody else? All right, before I go? I had a couple of comments, and actually, well, I won't frame them in the form of questions, but my understanding, based on the staff report on page 10 of 11, It indicates that in addition to the above, and I'm quoting, "In addition to the above changes which the city has agreed to, HCD cited other changes they suggest the city should make. However, it's unclear whether the city is required to make these additional changes under state law." I want to make sure with a nodded head that the changes that we're being asked to approve tonight are absolute state mandates that we don't have any control over, correct? Yes, Mr. Sanchez? And welcome aboard, Mr. Sanchez. We're happy to have you on board.
That's correct.
Okay. And then, sorry, I should have asked for a verbal response rather than a head nod. And we have asked, it's correct for me to think, we have asked certain questions of HCD in terms of, for example, provide us with your statutory authority for requiring. Those items are still pending. They're not in front of us tonight, right?
That's correct.
Okay, and then finally, with respect to our Vista Campañero project, I still am having trouble pronouncing it, I'm sorry. There is that state legislation with respect to transit center and parking. These changes will not have an impact on that project, is my understanding. Because we've already negotiated out the terms of that development. Is that correct? There will be no impact on our pending project there.
That's correct.
Okay, all right. Thank you. I just want to echo, actually, the council has a tradition of saying ditto when other council members have already said it, and I think my colleagues have said it best, but I simply have to say, sorry, I'm going to say ditto, and then I'm going to say it is so frustrating to see this loss of local control. I mean, you have municipalities in this state spending literally, over the years, millions of dollars on planning and zoning, and then have the state mandate a loss of local control while potentially changing the fundamental character of a city. It is beyond frustration. And that's my editorial comment. But with that, I will support this. So let's hear, what's the pleasure of the council with respect to these items? We have 2 staff recommendations. Somebody want to come up with a motion? Who wants, do you want me to do it?
I'll do it if you don't
Vice
want to
Mayor?
do it. I'll follow the recommendation. Can we do this together, or should we do them separately, Councilor?
It's all in one ordinance, so
Okay.
just to note that, of course, that the
I'll move
typo on
the,
the letters are part of the motion that we'll make sure to clean those up for the adoption.
Right, right.
Thank you.
All right, so I'll make a motion that we approve, somewhat reluctantly, we approve items 1 and 2.
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Tennyson. All right, with that, let's please vote. And that is approved on a 5-0 vote. I want to thank again Mrs. Craven for being here this evening and addressing us with her comments. Much appreciated. And that takes us to the end of the public hearings on item L. We have 7 minutes before we go to general public comments at 6 p.m. So unless there's an objection, hearing none, I'm going to recess the meeting for 7 minutes, and we'll be back at 6 o'clock. As the city council, and this is the time, 6 p.m., for general public comments, for items that are not on the agenda. And we welcome our speakers here tonight. We have 2 speakers, and I just want to remind you that speakers are limited to 3 minutes each, and then I have to cut you off after 3 minutes. And our first speaker up is Heather Lancaster.
Hi, thank you for listening to me. Hi, everyone. My name is Heather Lancaster. I've been homeless in Camarillo for about 7.5 years, living in my car, recovering from a massive breakdown from authoritarian abuse that began at the age of 2. I've never used drugs. I've never used alcohol, and I'm a very strong Christian. The Lord led me here into this season in my car to show me the unseen, unheard story of homelessness. This little poem I'm going to speak to, I wrote about their heart's cry that I've learned. We need love to be embraced, to have a family to believe in us, to treat us like we're a brother or sister or friend. We're overwhelmed with traumas. Could you help us find love within it, to be safe, to heal, even though that we're imperfect? Could we use our small gifts and feel like we belong again? We are tired. Could we rest our hearts in your loving arms? Please don't fear us. It only makes us feel like wild animals. Please give us a reason to lift our faces again. Remember, love heals and hate kills. Folks, I'm aware of the massive fear the community has across the nation against the crime and mess of homelessness. However, when I attended the African Mission School with Roland and Heidi Baker, they showed me what love looks like. It was sitting in the dirt with the broken adults and the abandoned children. It was about adopting them into our personal family. It was about washing their feet. It was about serving them, even if it costs us our own pride. That changed their lives. It wasn't this institutional setup. It was being adopted by the community that gave them a reason to belong and to change, to try to change. America and the churches are losing the foundational aspect of what we represent. Love looks like something. It is love that changes lives. Let's not forget that. Blessings, and thank you for listening. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lancaster. Our next speaker is Sarah. And Sarah, you have 3 minutes.
Hi, how are you guys? So I'm just reaching out today because I've been a longtime resident of Camarillo. I came out to school here, and I've been here for almost like 10 plus years now. Me and my partner settled down here. We have a home here. We wanted to start our lives here, but I'm just reaching out to express my concerns regarding the noise pollution caused by the military jets, particularly the registered jets N406AX and N401AX that are flying over my home multiple times a day. Since the Camarillo Air Show, there's been the subsequent increase in the military jet flights. The noise has had adverse physiological and psychological effects on me. Unfortunately, it has escalated to the point where I experience anxiety and stress whenever these jets fly over my house, impacting my daily life and well-being. I've attempted to address these issues by reaching out to Drew Verbis at Point Mugu multiple times, but unfortunately, my efforts have not yielded any response. Additionally, attempts to file complaints with Point Mugu have been unsuccessful, as they directed me elsewhere without providing proper channels for resolution. I understand the importance of military training, and I am kindly requesting the City of Camarillo to consider developing ordinances to mitigate the noise pollution caused by these military jets. I believe that a collaborative effort can be made to find a balance that accommodates the training needs of the military while preserving the peace and well-being of the community. I'm aware that several residents in my neighborhood specifically have moved out due to the increased noise, and I fear this trend may continue if a resolution is not sought. I just kindly ask you guys to help me address these issues or find the proper channels to address these issues, because I've tried to reach out to Point Mugu, I've tried to reach out to the director of airports, and now I'm reaching out to the city. So I'm kind of at a loss. I'm not sure what to do. I've also filed a complaint with the Federal Aviation, I forget the last, it's FAA, or Yeah, AA. And I reported these specific jets, but yeah, and I followed their flight pattern and everything, and it's specifically over my house, like, because I have a flight tracker on my phone, and I know it's those two jets over and over again at this, like, so I'm just trying to figure out a way where I can remove myself from those days. And I know I have 30 seconds left, but basically, it all started with the Camarillo Air Show. The F-18s flew over my house, and I have a video of how loud it was, and that induced all of this. That caused my panic attack, and then ever since then, these two jets have just continually caused these issues. So I was leaving basically for that weekend because I knew the air show was happening, but I wasn't aware that they were going to be doing the trainings. And I wasn't aware that they were going to do the trainings that close to my house. So I was trying to be a peaceful member of community, but yeah.
Sarah, thank you very much for your comments. I actually had just two items. One is I'm aware anecdotally that there's been an uptick earlier this week in military jet traffic going to Naval Base Ventura County the last several days. But I'm also aware that there is, and I believe, and Ms. Dana can correct me if I'm wrong, Michelle, that there is a exercise that will be beginning on Friday where Naval Base Ventura County will be expecting more military jets in the area. And apparently, my understanding also, and as I'm looking at Ms. Dana, is that there have been a number of Air Force jets, military jets, that have been going into Naval Base Ventura County most recently. And I'm also looking at Councilmember Tennyson because of RDP 21. The second thing I would say, and if it's all right, Madam City Attorney, I think I would, just in response to your comments, Sarah, I would request that to see whether or not city staff could reach out to Naval Base Ventura County and see if they're willing to come and make a presentation to the city council. I received numerous complaints on the east side of the city, and I would like them to come, or either their public affairs officer or the base CO, and hopefully just come make a presentation for public information purposes. I realize that with respect to the noise, there are some reasons for that in terms of how pilots are throttling down to do their approach to Naval Base Ventura County, but I'm hopeful that staff could reach out on that. I don't know if I need to make that in the request of an agenda item, Madam City Attorney?
Directions to staff, if within reason, are fine.
Okay, well, perhaps we
Greg's saying
could
it's
reach
fine.
out and see if they're willing to come and make a presentation. So we could have a public presentation on this so the public can understand what's going on with them. And then, of course, with respect to Camarillo Airport, both Councilmember Santangelo and I sit on that airport authority. That's a little different situation. That's the general aviation airport. So anyway, thank you for your comments.
I appreciate your guys' time. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Any other speakers? All right, seeing none, that brings us to the end of our meeting, and do we have a closed session report?
There was no reportable action.
No reportable action? All right, with that said, we are going to adjourn at 6:08 PM, and we stand adjourned.